Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and today I'm going to be discussing and wrapping up all the books that I read in the month of August. And I'm super excited to talk about this today because I have some really fun graphics to share, none of which I made myself. They're all at the hands of other people who are better at this stuff than I am. But let's go ahead and get started. So this first graphic that you can hopefully see here on your screen is one that was put together by the Storygraph. And you can see their little symbol down in the corner of your screen, hopefully, if I've done this correctly. And this is apparently a new feature on the Storygraph. Now, at the end of the month, they will send you a little notification and let you know that your wrap up is ready. And you go, and all this information is already put together for you. So, this is really cool, in my opinion. So, let's go and look over it. In the month of August, I read 6 books, and that includes all the books that I read and finished. So that number does not include books that I DNF'd or books that I started or already had going before August and am still reading. It is only books that I finished and gave a rating to. So there were 6 books that I finished in the month of August. It equaled a total of 2,318 pages. And that number, I should mention, is not, as far as I can tell, based on the number of pages in this book. That is actually the number of pages that I read. So it does include anything that I read during that month but didn't finish. And it also includes pages that I read in books that I'm still currently reading. And I'll talk about those 2 books later because there's 2 books that fall into one of those 2 categories. The average star rating I gave was 3.83, though I only give whole ratings, but it's an average of all my ratings taken together. And very neatly, they went ahead and took the highest 3 rated books that I had and did a little graphic image of them for you. You can also see on this page my average book length as well as the average time it took me to finish. And then at the very bottom of this graphic, they have this neat outline of the entire month showing approximately the number of pages that I read each day. Now, I was not aware that this was going to be available, so it looks like there's a whole bunch of days that I didn't read. It looks like somewhere around the 30th, I read practically everything, and that's not quite what happened. I typically am very good about letting Storygraph know the exact date that I finished a book. I'm not so good at always going in and updating how many pages I read and what each day, but I will be now because now that I know that they're going to make this graph, I want it to accurately reflect what I'm doing. That is the first graphic. I think that's so neat that they have this. So if you're on the Storygraph, go check it out. But wait, there's more. They not only created that graphic, there were actually numerous graphics and visuals and that kind of thing that you could download. I cut myself off / was kind of my computer and I only downloaded 2 of the images based on just what I normally talk about in my wrap-up video. So this next graphic that you can see here, and hi, I can put myself in the little corner. This next graphic that we're looking at here is actually a picture of all 6 of the books that I read this month and what I gave them as star ratings. So let's go ahead and talk about them. I gave 2 books 3-star ratings. Those were A Novel Bookstore and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And for me, a 3-star rating means that I thought the book was good, but it just was lacking in some area. It wasn't a bad book. I didn't dislike it, but it was just okay for me for one reason or another. A Novel Bookstore I talk about in some length in my weekly reading wrap up, as well as in my Big Book Summer Challenge wrap up. So I'm not going to go over again here what that book was about or who I'd recommend it to or why it wasn't my favorite, but you can go back and look at those videos to get more information about that. But in general, for me, it was just an okay book. I thought it was going to be a 4 or 5-star at one point. And then there were just some problems that I just couldn't get over. And in the end, I just kind of felt like, oh, that was all right. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, again, I talk about in specifically my reading 200 pages in one day. I don't go into great length on that. However, I do have a Storygraph read along and I do have a Discord channel where I am talking about The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and James by Percival Everett. So you can check out either the video that I am doing on that or the Storygraph read along, or you can go into my Discord and see more of my thoughts, especially on Huck Finn. All of these things I will link in the description box below and maybe flash in the cards above so that it's easy for you to go and look up those videos further if that's something that's interesting to you. This month I had 3 4-star rated books, which is pretty good given that I only read 6 books this month. And a 4-star to me means that the book was really good. I think most people would like it. I think it's a good source for entertainment as far as reading goes, and that maybe there were some problems in it that kept it from being a 5-star, or it might just be a book that was just pure entertainment for me and that I can't imagine reading multiple times, either because maybe there were a lot of plot twists and now I feel like I don't think the book would be as exciting as a reread, or like it might have been too heavy on the entertainment value and not deep enough for me to want to go back and sort of mine the resources again, if you will. That said, I enjoyed Neverwhere, the Axeman's Carnival, and A Month in the Country very much while I was reading them. I think they would appeal to different people for different reasons. And in my video, reading to how I read 200 pages, or can I read 200 pages, whatever it is, I'll link it in the cards above and in the description box. But in that video, I do talk some about each of these books because all 3 of these books were read during that time period. And they're all books that I would recommend. Neverwhere, maybe more if you're into magical realism or fantasy. The Axeman's Carnival feels a bit more on the contemporary fictions, almost literary fiction side. And A Month in the Country was just a really good short summer read, very thoughtful but lighthearted, kind of funny, but with some deeper moments as well. And I would recommend that as a good summer read. So yeah, so that is the basic and vast majority of my wrap up, but I still have a couple other things to talk about. So I did mention that this Storygraph wrap up does not include books that I DNF. I did DNF 1 book in the month of August, and that was And Ladies of the Club. I got about 900 pages into this 1,430-page book and just decided that I just could not take the characters any longer. They had been grating on my nerves for a long time, and it wasn't just the characters themselves, it was really the lack of character development and what I felt like was failed character development that really did this book into me. I felt like the characters were neither growing, and even at 40 and 50, felt like the 18-year-old girls that they started out as. And I also felt like nobody was learning from their life lessons or mistakes. And sometimes things that felt like mistakes or problems were treated like they weren't problems. And it just became uncomfortable and awkward and unpleasant. And my real issue with that is that was not the author's intent. The author's intent was to put in front of you these beautiful, well-developed characters and to just show how great this community was. And I was really experiencing the exact opposite, which was why I knew it wasn't going to get better. And after a certain point, there were no saving certain people. And yeah, I talk about this book more in length again in my weekly wrap-up videos. If you really want to see in-depth thoughts about all the books that I'm mentioning, then I would suggest subscribing to my channel, because then you'll get notified of my weekly wrap-up videos where I talk about in length. But to keep things moving, that book was DNF'd, and yeah, let's just talk about the one book that I am carrying over into September, and that is The Mysteries of Paris. So I am still in the middle of reading this book. I did finish book 6, and it was really interesting. There's always so much that's happening in this book, so many new things being discovered. For once, I don't think we met any new characters this time, but I'm still really enjoying this book. It is a very simple read in a lot of ways in terms of the way it's been translated. Sometimes feels like too simple, even though the author is like a bit wordy. Like this work was definitely serialized. He was definitely being paid per word, and you feel it sometimes where it's like you're having conversations in ways that people just don't have conversations. The characters are really well developed, so I am invested in them. I do want to know what's going to happen to them, so I think that's the main thing that's keeping me going, as well as there are still a lot of mysteries of Paris to be uncovered and solved and figured out. And so I think that's the thing that keeps you going through the book. That, and it is a very easy read. Like, it's the chapters were not as short as they have been, I will say. So that made it a little bit more of a slog this month, but there were fewer chapters to read. That said, I needed there to be fewer chapters to read this month because I was on the procrastination train for sure with this. So better luck with this for September with book 7 for me, crossing my fingers I stay on schedule. One of the other things that I am doing on an ongoing basis is I have what I am calling a Wonder Along going on, where I am working my way through A Year of Wonder, which is a book that has a collection of classical music pieces to listen to each day. And while I'm not going to talk at length about every single, music piece that I've listened to, I am each month going to pick a piece of the month that was my favorite. And this month it was a piece by Bach. I will put a little picture of, I don't know, the album cover, if you will, and the name of the piece on the screen. And I absolutely loved this piece. It was just a delight to listen to from the first note all the way through the end. And if you listen to it, you'll probably find you probably know this movement in the song as well. I particularly loved this violinist rendition of it. And I watched his, sort of music video of him playing it, which just brings a whole new life to the song. And I will link that in the description box below because it is worth going and viewing. I will say that I was very torn between this song and another song by Jordi Savall, who is a composer whose work I'm just loving every time it comes up, whether it comes up in the book or it just automatically starts playing on my phone. And I'm so excited, guys, because fangirl me just happened to go and look up and be like, oh, what are the chances that he's going to be anywhere near me in the future putting on a concert? Well, the chances were really good. I bought tickets and I'm going to see him in October. So that was definitely a highlight for this month. And then I have two other reading challenges that I'm participating in. One of them finished up, and that was the Big Book Summer Challenge that ended on September 2nd. And I did post a video earlier this week wrapping that whole thing up and how that went for me. And then the final reading challenge I have to talk about is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And I decided this month to go with the theme of wrap ups and graphics is to show you the amazing graphics that go along with this. And these graphics were created by Stephanie Atcordy and are part of the challenge. If you sign up to do this challenge, one of the things that she does is she gives you access to the Google Doc that has the bingo board and the bingo tracker and the book tracker, and amazingly, the book graphics that she has somehow magically put together in Google Sheets. Way to go, because I could never do this. So let's have a look at those. Okay, so on a really random note, if there's all of a sudden been a lot of changes with me and the camera angle, there was just in between there, which was like no time for you, hours, a lunch, 10 phone calls, a trip into town, a bookstore visit. I wish I was joking. Like it's now hours later. Weird interruptions happened. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I was about to tell you about all the great charts that Stephanie has made for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. So let us take a look at them together. So you will see that these numbers look greatly different than the numbers we just looked at on the story graph. And the reason is these are my numbers specifically just for the hardest reading challenge you will ever do. So these are covering where I am at just in that challenge. So not every book that I've read has necessarily fit in here perfectly. I'm only counting books that I've finished, and you can see in the monthly totals that this covers books that I read and finished both in July and August. So at this point, I have read 10 books that count towards this challenge for a total of 3,029 pages. It says that I've listened to 25 hours because there is a way in there to track how many hours you've listened. I may have accidentally included hours and page numbers. It doesn't matter. I really follow page numbers regardless. And it also tells you my average rating. These are just a few of the graphics that she has. There are pie charts for every imaginable statistic that she has you track. So you could go by like whether you're reading novels or novellas or short stories, and who the publisher is, and when you purchased the book, and when the book itself was published. But these are my favorite stats to follow, so these are the ones that I'm going to keep showing you guys. So right now in the upper right hand corner, there's this colorful pie chart of everything that I am reading in regards to genre. And so you can see that 20% of my books are classics, but and also science fiction, which I find really interesting right now. But the vast majority of them, if you will, so 30% were literary fiction, and then all at 10% are fantasy, historical fiction, and mystery. And my second favorite, no, this is probably my first favorite, like my most favorite graphic that is provided is that she does provide space for you to put in there what country your book is set in, as well as information regarding the authors. So this map has to do with the setting of your country. So you can see like how widely or diversely or globally you are reading. And my understanding of the way this works is that the darker the color, the more you have read from there. So if you see the little key at the bottom, it's saying that if I've only read one book, then it's going to be that light lavender purple. But if I've read at least two books, it's dark green. And I know it goes up from there. So if I've read, say, like 7 or 10 books, I know it'll be an even more different color. So ideally, you want to get as many countries as dark as possible. At least that's my personal goal. So I'm super excited by that because it definitely motivates me to read more globally. And then as far as the breakdown of where these books are, I will show you one more graphic that she has available. So here's the next graphic that I want to show you. I have adjusted this graphic and the previous set of graphics you saw by pulling them out of the wonderful Excel book that she has given us. And I've just put them into a PowerPoint presentation so that I could blow them up larger so it would be easier to see on your screen. But this one is the sort of personalized, tied into our own reading stats bingo board that she's created. I did not color this in. The light purple spaces are that color to remind me that those are prompts that I can double up on. And then you will see that there are these greenish spaces. Whenever I fill in the Excel chart with the different prompts listing under them what books I have read, I can then click that I have completed a prompt and it will automatically turn that square on the bingo board green. My mind is blown. Clearly, I am slightly better at PowerPoint than Excel because all of these things I think are like magic. So anyway, so I will, at the end of each month, when I do an update on the hardest reading challenge you will ever do, I will show this graphic really quickly so that you can see where I am at. So far on here, it says that I have basically completed 2 challenges. The other thing I will do is once the squares have turned green, I will share with you what books I have read for them. So for the Find a Local Author square, I read Iceman Awakens, and for the Read a Classic and an Adaptation, like I said, my books were The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and James by Percival Everett. So that is it for those squares. So you will be getting my hardest reading challenge you'll ever do updates in this fashion going forward. And I do have to say, I think I'm going to change my strategy for how I approach doing the hardest reading challenge, but I'll talk about it when it finally comes time to choose my October TBR. And that actually finally brings me to the end of my August reading wrap up. So I hope this was a lot of fun for you guys. It was a lot of fun for me. I love the fact that I have all these extra visuals. I think it's so amazing that the people at the Storygraph have come up with another way for us to view all our stats as a reader. And I so appreciate Stephanie for everything she's put together for this challenge. And if you haven't checked it out, you can. You technically aren't going to be able to do the full year thing, but there's still all these amazing things available for you to participate in. So if you're able to, yeah, go sign up. All right, that's it for me today. And yeah, let me know how you did in August. Did you find any new favorite books? Was it a slumpy month for you? What happened? Comment below and let me know. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.